All right. Well, guys, welcome to Next Level Entrepreneur. You guys, you guys are in for a treat because you're going to hear from somebody who's talking about um, decreasing overwhelm and maximizing results. Now, if you've been an entrepreneur for more than 5 minutes, you realize that those almost seem to be a contradiction to each other because most people are complete overwhelm as they start in entrepreneurship. And I know people that have been an entrepreneur for 20 years and they're still in complete overwhelm. So the fact that he's understands this whole idea of how to bring down the stress and increase the opportunity is going to be something that you're going to want to listen to, pay close attention to. Share this out with your friends, get people connected, and then make sure that you follow up with him afterwards. This is being Facebook Live as well as on Zoom. So if you're on Zoom, make sure that you minimize your video so that we can have a maximum opportunity for the screen. And so we'll be side by side. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get this thing started here pretty quick. Let's see. So I see some waiting room. So we're going to bring some people into the waiting room. And there we go. And then we've got people on Facebook Live. So guys, welcome. Welcome to the Next Level Entrepreneur Show. This is going to be a great opportunity. I'm excited for our guest because we got an introduction. Many of you know that a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, hey, who should I meet with? And somebody will say, oh, meet with this person. And this person was brought up. Joshua Sprague is the creator, curator, everything else of the minimalist marketing. Guys, how many of you guys want better marketing, want better approach to the market, how to attract people, how to attract the right clients? Marketing is a key component of that, but most of us are so overwhelmed by the marketing aspect, and he has got some great ideas for you. But he's also going to talk about some painful experiences that he's gone through and how you can avoid some of those as well. So, guys, welcome. Joshua, thanks for the call.
Hey, Bob. I'm stoked to be here. Super excited. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, brother, man, this is going to be exciting times. So tell us right from the get-go, how can people get in touch with you so that they can follow up with you? Because I think a lot of times we do this at the end of the call and people don't get this. So how can people get in touch with you beyond this point?
Yeah, totally. I guess two ways to do it. One would be to hop into the free minimalist marketing group. And I can send you over a link for that at some point here, and we can get people linked up for that, or just over on Instagram at Joshua J Sprague, just my initial J in the middle. That's the best spot. So yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
What, the interesting thing about what we have here is we have an opportunity to help a lot of entrepreneurs on this call. Entrepreneurs that are excited about getting their message out, excited about doing some big things, and yet are struggling with the overwhelm of the chaos that creates. Mm-hmm. You and I were just talking on offline where I said, if I had to be an entrepreneur and start today, I can't imagine all the overwhelm. I mean, I filter out all the BS typically pretty quick. People are being bombarded. An entrepreneur, they're started, and all they're told, you got to have this funnel, you got to have this program, and then you got to have this type of situation, and then you got to have this platform, and you got to have group, and then it's like, where do they start? How do you get rid of all the noise and really help them?
I love this question. It's something I'm really, really passionate about. So just for a little context on this too. So my background is I'm a skier, right? So I actually used to work in the ski industry for a long time. I used to ski around with dynamite in my backpack and blow things up and make avalanches, right? And it was super fun. I loved it. It was just it was an amazing job. But the problem was, I was only making $12-13 an hour. You're risking your life every day, and it's seasonal, right? So, you can't really scale that. So I started to ask myself this question. This is probably 9 years ago when I left the industry. And I started to ask myself this question, what would it take to basically still ski 50 to 100 days a year, but create a business or something that would support my lifestyle, right? And so I went down this rabbit hole of entrepreneurship. Now, one thing I've always applied to entrepreneurship, and I've made tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of mistakes along the way, which I'm sure we'll dive into a lot of those because I have some terrible stories there that I've taken a lot away from. But to bring this to your question, like one of the big things that helped me go on and apply this, to creating like several multi-six figure and multi-seven figure businesses is actually something that I learned from skiing, which is when you're skiing, the most effective place to be is in this flow state. And like when you're skiing steep things, everything else around you just disappears. You are completely present, completely immersed. Everything is focused just on what is in front of you in that present. And I honestly think that the biggest thing that happens to us is we get distracted, which then creates overwhelm. And all of these things systematically operate to take us out of a flow state. Like this thing is amazing, but it's terrible when it comes to getting in a flow.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm like religious about is that the first 2 hours of my day cannot be anything with that phone. Cannot be. The first hour has to be focused on my personal development. I do a lot of meditation personally, just because I want to control my mind. But then the second piece of that is like the first hour of your day sets the tone for how you operate the rest of the day. So are you doing something then that is creative, right? So like for me, I love to write. That is like one of my skill sets that I'm always wanting to strengthen is like copy and email marketing and sales through the written word. And prioritizing that piece of it has made a massive, massive difference for me. So I guess what I would encourage people to do, or what I would say is like, what is the skill set or what is the thing that you get in flow with that you naturally do? I know you're a connector, Bob, like you're amazing at that. So it probably is most flow-like or most beneficial for you to get in a place where you're reaching out and connecting with people and having conversations versus like, oh, how can I set up this funnel? Or what's the tech of me making sure this link works with this button and dot, 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 dot.
Right.
So I think putting it in that state of like, how can I prioritize flow in my life will help you minimize a lot of the BS that competes for it. Oh, I need to be doing webinars and Instagram and LinkedIn and going to this event and that. It's like, no, like what is your flow state or what are your flow states that then create the outcomes that you want? And if you don't know what those are, like spend a little time doing that. That could be some of the most productive time that you ever have.
So how would you suggest somebody find their flow state?
Great question. So I'll recommend a resource for that has been really valuable for me. And then I'll recommend, well, what I would say is first off, like you probably have a good idea of what some of those things are for you, right? So like, I know for me, I don't love getting lost in like math equations. I'm not like a crazy gnarly number person. Obviously they're important to business, but that's not where I get excited. That's not where I lose myself. When I'm speaking, when I'm writing, when I'm creating video content, like when I'm meeting people in person and hanging out with them and having like connections, that's when I kind of lose track of time. So I guess a good place to start is to ask yourself, like, where are the places in my business where I just start to lose track of time in a good way? Not like you spent 10 hours, being frustrated setting up a funnel, but like, where did I just lose myself in that space?
Love that.
And then the second thing is, this is actually something that was recommended to me. I joined a mastermind, like my first high level mastermind, I joined like 6-7 years ago. Right. And I met this guy who recommended this thing called the Wealth Dynamics Profile Test. And there's a lot of like personality tests and all this kind of stuff like that out there. But this thing is probably the most powerful test I've ever taken, because it specifically relates to, basically it says there's 8 different wealth types that are basically 8 different ways that people create wealth. And that's it. There's no more.
Wow.
So like the way Warren Buffett creates wealth is completely different than the way Oprah Winfrey creates wealth. And if they try to do the way that the other one does, it doesn't work at all. So this test is really cool because it helps you understand like basically your modus operandi for creating flow and wealth in your business. And I just noticed after I took that, every single time that I was doing something that was out of my native state, that everything all of a sudden felt hard. It felt difficult. It felt overwhelming. But when I operated in that flow state and in that archetype, basically that it helped me see that everything was just so much easier, and it's so much easier to put people in place than to support you with the stuff that you're not good at. Those would be two places I would definitely recommend.
So how do you stop doing that thing? I mean, we feel the sense of urgency. They're great books, The Tyranny of the Urgent. We feel the urgent that we got to do this. So how do you filter those things out? I mean, once you've identified, okay, this is not my flow state. This is not what do you do with that if you don't? Most people say, I can't afford to have a virtual assistant. I can't afford to have stuff. What do you do with that?
Well, I like to start with questions, actually. So I had written down 5 questions that I wanted to share with you guys.
Awesome.
And I would really encourage you to write these down, because a great question can change the outcome of everything. That's definitely something that I've learned. So here's a question, again, write these down. So the first one would be, what would this look like if it were easy? I learned this one from Tim Ferriss, actually. He wrote it in his book, Tribe of Mentors. It was how he started that book, and it just stood out to me when I grabbed it, or when I first read that. So that question is just deceptively powerful. Like, what would this look like if it were easy? So whatever it is that you're working on, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, I was building out a funnel recently for a product of mine that I was launching, and I kept trying to overcomplicate it. I kept getting stuck in like, oh my God, I need to integrate this. I need to have this work. I need to have this work, right? And I just asked myself this question when I was getting really frustrated. What would this look like if it were easy? And the answer came to me: just shoot a video and stop trying to overcomplicate and make everything connect. And so I did that, and then all of a sudden the funnel starts working. And it took way less time, right? So that question can be really powerful. A second question is, what is the one thing that I must accomplish in the next 90 days? What is the one thing I must accomplish in the next 90 days? I find that when you know what that one thing is, it gets really easy to be like, I don't need to be doing whatever these ads are showing me I need to do. So like for you, if growing, the group comes most naturally for you when you're going to events and meeting people or getting referrals from other people, and your goal is to grow the tribe in the next 90 days by 20, 50, 100 people, whatever it may be, then that's literally the one thing that you need to do every day. And then the third question would be, if I could only work on one thing today, what would it be? And like a follow-up question to that, which is crazy powerful question too, I learned this from my friend Ian Stanley, is if I only had 1 hour to work today, what would I do? And then the fourth question would be, what is one thing I could erase or hand off today or this week? What is one thing I could erase or hand off today or this week? And then I love this last question that I'm going to share with you guys, which is, how much free time do I want to have per day? How much free time do I want to have per day?
Per day.
And I like that because a lot of times I've been so guilty of this, where you get in this habit of like working 8, 10, 12, 14-hour days. It can be just super, it just be easy to do that, right. Especially if you don't have a big team or anything like that. Well, really, regardless, it can be so easy to get in that state where you're just working and working and working and working and working. And we basically prioritize our business over our relationships, our health, our personal lifestyle. And that question to me, it's like, it flips the switch, and it's like, what do you want? What do you want free time wise? Like, so for me, I want to ski. Like, that's really, really freaking important. That's the whole reason why I started this thing, And when I lose myself in work, I forget that question. And I have to like go back to it and remind myself like, oh dude, that's why you did this. You didn't do this to get in the grind for like 14 hours, 12 hours a day. You did this so that you would have something that creates leverage so that you enjoy more of your life. Because I think we all get, it's just so common where people create a business that owns them versus like having a business that then supports them in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So those 5 questions would be an amazing place to start.
Love it. Love it. So how did you come up with the answers for yourself?
Well, these are questions that I'm constantly asking myself, depending on what the project is or the day. That's why I like
I
them.
love that. And I just want
Yeah.
to stop because I think a lot of times people think, well, I've answered the question. Now that's what I just do.
Mm,
I think the question is always in a state of evolution, correct?
right.
The answers. I love the fact that you said, well, I'm constantly answering this question because things might change. Perspectives might change. Somebody asked me the other day, Bob, luxury has been a brand for you with Next Level and luxury, and like you're talking about like loading up and going across country in a camper, and you're talking about, doing,
I love that.
these things that don't fit the brand of luxury. And I'm like, there might have been a time in my life when that was a thing. However, always, consistently, it's always been about lifestyle at the beach, lifestyle in a camper, lifestyle wherever. Lifestyle's always been the thing. Luxury may have looked like luxury at one time. It may look different now. And that evolution, if I wasn't careful about that, I would be stuck to blank, an old mold or an old model that maybe was working for me at one point, but didn't work for me in the future. And I love that you said that. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that. And, luxury is a funny thing because it's all based on your interpretation, right?
Yes. Amen.
And ultimately for you, it sounds like it's really about like the time freedom to be able to do what you want. And isn't that ultimately what we all want to? So
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah.
So tell us how you started this minimalist marketing. I mean, I love the term. One, I'm a minimalist. Everything I own can fit in my car.
Yeah.
So I love the fact minimalist, but the idea of this minimalist marketing, how did it evolve and where's it at now and where's it going?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, like the name for it was just a download I got in meditation one day, to be honest. I liked it. But as I've looked over my own online business career, like there's been moments where things have been really hard, and then there's been moments where they've been really easy. And so I'll give you a funny story, or not a funny story, but I guess it was an interesting story for me. So a couple years ago, with one of I had an e-commerce business with a partner, and it was difficult at first, and then it did well for 4, 5, 6 months, and then it started kind of like going downhill. And I just felt like we were grinding and trying everything and like trying to make stuff happen, and it was just so frustrating. I was in that state where, again, it was 14 and 16-hour days. It was like, why isn't this working? It was hitting my head against the wall. It was just frustration. And then on top of that, there was like a pride issue too of like, especially when you also help other people do similar things that you do. If some of your own stuff isn't operating perfectly all the time, then sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm a loser. Now I can't help people with this because my shit's not happening right now. I don't know if I can cuss, but that's just how I talk.
Yeah, of course. Love it.
So then there's this internal battle too that's like, God, now I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, which is not true. You're just a human that has real business issues. Businesses go up and they go down, right? But anyway, I was super frustrated with this, right? And I hired this guy as a mentor. And it was funny. The content and everything that he taught was like great, but like really the investment all came down to this one phone conversation I had with him that was like 5 minutes. And he basically just told me, I was like, I'm so frustrated with this thing used to kill it. It's been killing it for the last like 5 or 6 months, but now everything is not working. It's losing money. It's just crap. And I'm like, what do I do? And he said, stop selling it. Find a different product. Move on. And I didn't like that because I wanted this thing to work, right? I'm like, no, this is the thing. I've put so much time into this. I've made it work. We've already sold like, $500,000 worth of this thing. I know it can do more.
Right.
But I was like, okay, I'm just going to let it go. And like a few days later, we ended up finding a better product in the space that we were in. And that thing did almost $1 million in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like it was crazy. And I had a ski trip planned for that time too, right? So like literally Yeah, like right as we were scaling this, and like at the peak of it, it was doing like around like 60 grand a day, which was just blowing my mind because here was like a ski bum years before who like barely made like 20 grand. It's,
Right.
a year, right?
Right.
And so this is all, again, it doesn't matter. Like the numbers don't matter. It's just about like the principle of this, right? So I was gone. I was away on the ski trip, and everything was operating. Everything was happening. My business partner, my team were like taking care of things. I literally didn't have any internet connection. I was in a ski hut off of the grid in British Columbia near Whistler. So I didn't even have any cell phone reception or anything for like 2 days during this. And I got back and I was like, why was this so easy? So that was like the question that came out of it for me was like, why was this so easy? And then it was so hard before. And so I guess like to answer your question of like, where did this minimalist thing came out? It came out of this idea of seeing patterns where things were really difficult and then things were exponentially easier. And I think everybody has this, right? You really do. We all have these things where it's like you're pushing, or you're doing things and they're not working your way. And then there's almost this like beautiful thing, like when you kind of let go or just decide to no longer be attached to it or allow yourself to get support in some way or just change the business model or like whatever it may be.
Right.
It's allowing some sort of shift to happen and then things just go so much bigger and so much easier, Now that's not to say that like we went on and we just did that forever because we didn't, it was a product, it was the right timing, it was all those kind of things. But it really came out of this exploration of like, why does this happen to us? And then how can we make it happen more often? And so then I started to go back and look like, all right, so what were the circumstances where things were just really effortless, really easy, and the results weren't like 2x or 3x better. They were like 100x better, 200x better.
Gotcha.
And so what I would encourage people to do is like, look at those in your life. Like, what are the things like that have happened in your business, in your body, in your relationship, like all that kind of stuff where it was just ridiculously easy, and start to kind of deconstruct that, So for me, a couple of things that I realized was one, I asked for help outside of myself. That was a big one. It was just a big one for me because I can get in this space where it's like, I don't know, there's pride around me or something. And I'm like, oh, I need to figure all the answers out myself, A second one was collaborating with the right people, So my business partner in that company was just way better at managing the day-to-day advertising than I was. Even though I could do it, my skill set was really more on like creating the creatives and seeing the big vision of everything. So allowing like to be supported that way.
Did you find that difficult? I know a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time allowing, like you said, allowing yourself to be supported in that way. Was that a struggle for you? I know a lot of people have a struggle with that.
I think it's always a battle, because we're humans, right? So I do think that can be a struggle for sure.
Okay.
But I don't know. I guess like over the years, I've gotten more wrapped into this idea of like collaboration as currency. And that you can compete with people and win, but it's not like I'm kind of an energy dude too, right? So it's like, the energy of like of competing is a different energy than just the energy of like, hey, how can we create something awesome together? It's a different vibe, right? You get results with both, right? But I think you end up being happier if you do the latter, at least longer.
Yeah. I agree. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So collaboration with the right people. Was there something after that?
I said collaborate. What did I say? Collaboration with the right people. Collaboration is currency. Getting advice and input from mentors was a big one, or just outside perspective.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is like understanding your zone of genius and operating in that more. So like when I look back, this was something I did, and I recommend people do this. I just did this recently, and I try and do it at least every 6 months, but I should probably do it like every week. I really should do it every week, which is to go back and look at the last quarter, the last year, the last 5 years, whatever, and just ask yourself, where was it easy? And what did I do to allow it to be easy?
Mm.
And so like for me, I'm a people person, right? So like when I kind of did this and I realized that for like my higher ticket one-on-one clients that work with me or consulting clients, those ones basically all came out of meeting people in person. They never came from ads. Never. I had to meet them and hang out with them in person, and then they liked me and knew I could help them. And then it just became a natural extension to do business that way for that type of client. Right. Now, if it's like selling a product or selling a course or something like that, you know, the advertising avenue has worked out great for that. But when it came to those types of clients, I realized that it came as a result of, you know, of going and doing those things.
Interesting. So when you say understand what your genius is and then operate from that, what is your genius? And how did you figure that out?
I think I'm evolving and I'm still trying to figure it out, you know? It was funny, actually. I called my dad up a couple weeks ago, right? We were just having a good chat. Like he's just a great man and we're just good friends too. Which I think it's good to have that relationship with your father. But I asked him, I said, you know, like when I was young, like what did you think I was going to do? Or what did you think I was going to be? Like, where was I good at, you know? And he jokingly said, I actually thought you were going to be a televangelist for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. So like, it's funny because, so I have a degree in like religious studies and in right. So like, I've always been into like speaking and performing in some way, but I've also had like this spiritual side of me. And I've always infused that kind of into my business and my marketing and just who I am, even though I don't necessarily like, it's not like religious dogmatic. It's just, you know, there's a spiritual piece to that. And he also said like, you know, you've always liked to be on stage or share things or connect with people. Like you've always been very relational with people is what he said to me. And I was like, oh, that's so true. And when I looked back at like the things that were in my zone of genius, so whether that's like doing sales or marketing or like speaking or connecting with people or doing things like this, or just like having amazing conversations, it always had to do with like really all three of those things. One, was there like a relationship happening? Was there a deep connection with this other person? And was there more depth and substance than just like, how do we make money or how do we grow something? Is this a real person who is more complex than just that? Like, do they want to explore deeper conversations than just like, what's the latest Facebook strategy, you know? And that's where kind of like that deeper side of things came in. And then I get lost, I get in flow when I'm like just creating stuff like videos or speaking or doing that kind of stuff. So I guess to answer that, because this isn't about me, it's about you guys, which is like, go ask like 3, 4, 5 different people that are close to you and just ask them. I think it's great to ask your parents too, like what they thought you might do, not what they wanted you to do, but like what they innately saw in you that you just gravitated towards. That's a really good place to start.
Yeah. That's a very close place. So you've got this business now, you've got it kind of humming along, and you've got some ideas and you're tweaking things constantly. You're constantly making the adjustments. You're seeking outside counsel, all of these things. And yet you've got, you know, some of these people are listening are sitting there going, that's all great. But I'm still in complete overwhelm. Which funnel do I use? Which marketing platform do I use? How do I do this? You have a group called Minimalist Marketing.
Yep.
Right. It's a free group.
Yep.
That people can participate in. So that's something first thing I tell you guys, go join the group. But what are some of the things that you share within that group that would be beneficial and helpful for these people?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at the core of it, when it comes down to business, like there's really only 2 things that I think people need to focus on, especially if you're getting started or kind of struggling with fine tuning all that stuff. It's you just need to get leads and you need to get sales. Like, that's it. You don't need to worry about anything else. You don't need to, you literally don't need to worry about anything else. You need to get leads and you need to get sales, right? And you know, again, there's a billion different industries you can get in. And I'm not sure. I imagine you have a ton of different types of people in here too, where it's not just online businesses, it's offline businesses, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, just looking at some of the group, and we've got people from data storage to attorneys to sound technicians for major rock bands around the world,
I
like
love that.
Chili Peppers and some other great people,
Yeah.
to surveillance people, wardrobe. I mean, you've got it. We've got a full gamut of people on.
Yeah, I love it. So that's always the place that I would start, is like, so if you're selling your personal services, you know, like let's take the person who does like sound, I think you said sound engineering or something like that, right? Obviously the most important thing for that person to do is to get new clients in the door, or, clients that will be on contract month after month after month to do sound work for them.
Right.
So the whole thing needs to be about like, all right, what kinds of businesses or brands am I the perfect fit for? Right. Because somebody who does sounds for like corporate events might have a little different approach than somebody who is going to position themselves specifically for like, rock concerts, or if they're doing sound for like, big shows and stuff like that, or theater or something like that.
Sure.
So like, how can you start to bring in more of those people that would be attracted to you every day, right? And focus on getting those types of leads every single day, and then closing those deals. That's all that person would need to focus on.
So let's take somebody that, let's take Flo. She's got an online e-commerce business, but
Cool.
she also does it in person as well. But it's really about custom jellies and jams and candies that are sold. Some of them are sold on a subscription model. Some of them are sold one-offs at boutiques, things like that. How would you tell her to develop those?
Okay. So one, right away, if it's a jam or something like that, the priority for me personally would be, how can I get more people on the subscription model?
Correct.
Because again, I'm a person who when we think about leverage, right, and minimalism,
yeah,
converting somebody on a subscription is much more valuable and profitable than converting somebody just one time to try the jam, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can reduce the barrier to entry to try the jam, but then automatically get them on a recurring thing, like let's say it's get the jam for free, just pay shipping for the first one, and then you're auto enrolled into let's say 3 or 4 times a month, or not 3 or 4 times a month, but like a collection of our best jams every single month after that. But you can cancel it after 30 days. You get a 30-day subscription to that for free. That would be all the focus, because you just want to get people on the ball of being recurring customers for that. Gotcha. So that you're not always just out hunting over and over and over and over again.
Love it. Great.
There's tons of different ways, depending on your budget. Like if you want to advertise for that, cool. But if not, then who are like all of the bloggers, the food bloggers, because the food blogger community is like super passionate, right? Mm. Especially if those are jams that, fit into some specific dietary genre, right? Where, I guess jams probably don't have anything weird in them unless you have like high fructose syrup or something like that. But like, how could you position it that way then, where all of the organic mom bloggers or all the organic food bloggers are just like, this jam is the best freaking thing ever. You can go ahead and get a free jar, just pay shipping for it, and build relationships with all those people, and just focus on getting those subscription customers.
Gotcha. So how do you go about developing that though? I mean, you knew exactly where to go. I've been doing this a long time. I can figure out things pretty quick. But for somebody who's just starting out, or maybe somebody who's got their business going, but they need to take it to the next level, what are some questions that you tell them to ask themselves about the market, about the marketing? And then how do you address that in your group?
Sure. So I always look at like where you want to go with the business. Again, I'm always going to bring it back basically to like, how do you want your day to look like? Because the quality or the type of business you build is reflective of that. like I have some friends that their goal is to build like $100 million companies, $200 million companies. I just don't have any desire for that because I know it's going to take like so much work and so much effort and all these types of people. But if that's you, then that's awesome. Right. So like starting with, the business that supports your lifestyle or the goals that you have, I think is the first place to start with that. The second thing is, whenever I look at marketing, I'm gonna share something with you guys that I was actually gonna break down in the group that I really don't share with people too often. It's like really powerful, but I'll share it with you guys here. So one of the most powerful things that you can do in marketing, especially in advertising, is something that that I call correlation advertising. So if you're in the group, you guys can see this. I actually wrote a post in the group and I ran it as an ad for my book, which if you guys want, you can get it. It's $3, but
okay, tell us about the book. How do they get it?
It's just go to smashproductivity.com. Basically, I wrote this book and I interviewed like a bunch of the top 6, 7, and 8 figure online business owners, people like Lewis Howes, Pat Flynn, Neil Patel, James Wedmore. And I compiled all of their best productivity secrets to basically like working less and earning more, and compiled them with some of my own and put it together in this book. It's very quick read, fun, actionable, all that good stuff. Anyway, where was I going? I had a brain fart, Bob.
I'm sorry. I got excited.
Oh no, I was talking about correlation ads. Okay, correlation ads. I remember. So, all right. So I did this ad recently that worked out really well. And if you're not like, so if you grew up in my age range, I'm 37, right? So like I grew up playing Nintendo, like the old school Nintendo, the 8-bit Nintendo. And there was this game called Contra, and it was a super fun game, but they only gave you like 3 lives to play this game. And it was like 10 levels or something like that. And like when I was first learning the game, when I was young, I would just get killed, by the second level because I only had 3 lives. And then like a buddy of mine, he told me about this cheat code that you put in and it would give you 30 lives. And then what that did was it allowed me to basically, master the different levels of the game until I no longer needed the cheat codes anymore. Okay. So I ran an ad with an image from the game, which if you played that game growing up and you were in the demographic, you would immediately know exactly what it was. So it's definitely matched to the market that I was going to. And it hooked them in based off of this story that I just told you, right? And then I linked it to, basically I transitioned from this whole idea of applying cheat codes to this game Contra to applying cheat codes to building your online business. And that's basically what I reveal in my book when I interviewed all these different entrepreneurs. So these types of things, correlation ads, again, this is never something I've taught publicly, actually. These are insanely powerful because there's no resistance to anybody when you're marketing with them. Because imagine it, you're scrolling through, you see a game that is like childhood nostalgia for you, right? So immediately there's all this good emotion built around it.
Sure.
You start being drawn into a story. I'm talking about things like even the cheat code itself, like everybody who plays the game knows up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, select, start. Okay, like it's that ingrained. And so
that's great.
It just drew people in. I started getting all these comments too on this ad, like this is the best ad ever. I love this ad. I have to buy this just because this ad is so good. So correlation emails or correlation ads are insanely powerful. So think about like when you're looking at your market, right? What are some things that just would have some deep emotional resonance for that market? And then how can you link that then to what you're doing, right? That could be a childhood story. That could be something that's like a pop culture thing. There's a ton of ways to do it, but those types of, that type of marketing is crazy powerful because.
How do you do that with a tangible product? I mean, one of our people that's on is Jim DiGiorno. He's a client, a good friend of mine. He owns a company called Orion, and they make glassware. They make things for the restaurant industry, for the hospitality industry. If you've ever been to like Cheesecake Factory or some of those places, or Marriott, and you've seen like those the margarita glasses and the carafes and things like they make those. They make the taco stands, the little metal V's that the tacos sit in that you eat.
Yeah. Yep.
He makes those. I mean, how would you do something? How would you cultivate what you're talking about with something like that, a tangible product?
Yeah. So what I would think about first would be like, okay, is there a theme with the decision makers of those types of companies? Like, because it's for restaurants, right? Is that what you're saying?
Restaurants, hotels, the hospitality industry.
Yeah. So typically the owners are the decision makers for what they're going to purchase, right? And are they in a certain age range? Like, are they 45 to 65? Are they like over 40? I would think about, okay, first off, like what age range are they in? And then what would be cultural things that would be just obvious to anybody in that age range, right? And then tying that together in some way to whatever the product or service is. So I'm trying to think of an example. So my mother and father-in-law, they had a restaurant, and they're like in their 60s, right? And I know that my father-in-law is really into like just like the Eagles and that kind of rock music, right? So maybe there's music that's from that era that people just really relate to because it's part of their childhood.
Okay.
That could be tied to it. I don't know enough backstories about the Eagles, but this is literally what's popping up in my mind right now. Yeah, like maybe there's. That's a great question. I feel it on the tip of my tongue right there. But like thinking about those generational things, I guess, at a big picture level, and then what would be some way that you could transition that into your own product? Because the idea, like in the example I gave, it's about cheat codes, right?
Right.
And so cheat codes are the link to buying my product, right? But the nostalgia of the video game is what kind of brings somebody in. So maybe with the restaurant business too, like that, it's like the nostalgia of like being a little bit rebellious, right? Like you're still rebellious at heart, because that's what you grew up with, watching like Zeppelin and like all these guys, because they were just, they were renegades that way, right? But now you're also responsible and you've got to do this business thing, right? But like, how can we still be a little bit, rebellious or a little bit renegade-y with like, providing an amazing experience to our customers and making that seamless and effortless? Well, we're here to support you in doing that. And that's why we don't want you to have to worry and hassle about finding X, Y, and Z for your restaurant. You just want to deliver it and make an amazing presentation and experience or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, Jim said good thoughts, and he says it's culture. So it's about
culture. Yeah, sure.
We've got so many different great people on, and you guys feel free to text questions. We're going to be wrapping this up pretty quick. So if you have a question for Joshua, text it in. If you're online and you want to come on camera, let me know. If you're in Zoom, but let's see what else. So we've got some of these great people that have some great. Some of these businesses are just really cool businesses. So what are some things that that people are struggling with right now in their marketing that that you can help them with in either engagement or in helping you work with them one-on-one or becoming part of the group? What are some things that are at the forefront of their mind and how you can help them?
Like I said, the best way is just like connect with me over there. I mean, ultimately my goal is just to add value to you guys. And what I would say is like the marketing is really about emotion. It really is about emotion and creating, like if you keep that in mind, front and center, that what you're trying to do is not just like, if your goal initially is like, I need to sell and I need to make money with it, it's never as effective as like, what emotion can I trigger in a person, right? And we all are human, so we all have these core emotions of like love, joy, fear, passion, like there's all these emotions. And when you do that, somebody's just more receptive and more open, right? So that's a big piece of it for me. And whether that happens through like the sales funnel, the video creatives, the email marketing, like those are all things that like I help people with. The online advertising, all that kind of stuff. So like if you want to reach out about that, of course you can. But what I would say is like focus on creating emotion or connection for people in some way. And just start to take notice of the ads or the emails or the stuff on TV that catches your attention, right? Like 99% of the crap you see doesn't catch your attention.
Right.
But the stuff that goes viral or the stuff that triggers something is usually because it's deeply human. And so don't be afraid to be human in your with your business and how you tell your story, like if you're doing something like you're a lawyer, right? A law firm. I mean, that can be some of the driest freaking marketing in the world, but it's such an amazing opportunity because there's so many bad marketers in the legal world, right?
Like we have two attorneys on this call.
Good. That's good. I want to talk to them. You know what I mean? Because there's such an opportunity to speak to the core of who your market or who your ideal clients are.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that's like accident attorneys or tax attorneys or like whatever it may be, there's a story behind what you do and how that really helps somebody. And don't be afraid to like trigger that emotion to allow somebody to experience that.
What have you found is the reason people are apprehensive about sharing their story in their business?
I think it comes down to just our like we all have this stuff ingrained in us, I guess, of like being, well, I think there's a couple things. I think one, there's this story of like being perfect, right? And needing to be polished, and that people want to see you be polished in order to do business with you. And don't get me wrong, like there are certain businesses where that's definitely more important. Like if you're a doctor, I don't really want you to come in and be like well, we'll kind of figure it out and see how we go, but there's a story too behind like even those doctors that, can just really draw you to them, Yeah. So the reason I guess people are resistant to it is because it's just scary to put yourself out there. I mean, that's the reality of it, but the flip side of that is that when you do that, you naturally draw more of the right people to you, and they're more, they're just more charismatic about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was an amazing article that Tim Ferriss referenced like years ago in the 4-hour workday or work week or whatever it's called. And it was called 1,000 True Fans. If you've never read that article, go read it. He didn't write it, but somebody else did. And it basically was like this whole idea of how an artist, a musician, a company, like they really only need 1,000 true fans to be insanely profitable and successful. And basically a true fan is somebody who just buys everything. They buy all the box sets. They want to do everything that you do. They're diehard for you. And when you tell your story, you allow yourself to draw those 1,000 fans. Hopefully it's more than that, but I'm saying like that's the bare minimum.
Right.
But you allow yourself to draw those people to you.
Wow. So let's see. Flo says, what would you recommend for the first hour of the day?
Yeah. So I'm really, really protective of that first hour of my day. So everybody's different. You have to find your thing. But what I would say is like, spend it on you. Like it's for you 100%.
Yeah.
For me, like I tend to spend the first hour of my day, at least the first like 30 minutes, like in meditation. So I like to get up at like 5:30 and I usually sit just still, just being quiet and like trying to control my mind from like wandering and just like going inward for at least a half an hour, just because that quality then allows me to take that into the rest of my day, not be as reactive, be more focused, be more centered. So I would say focus on yourself in some way, whatever that looks like for you. And then after that would be focus on something that gets you in flow. So if it's related to your business, like for me this year, my big focus is mastering email marketing, that one avenue specifically. So I write basically email copy and emails that go out every single day. And I do that in the morning. It's the first thing I work on because that skill set, I've been developing it for a while and I want to make it better and better and better and better and better. And I just feel in flow when I'm like doing that. So yeah.
If there was one thing, we're going to wrap up. If there was one thing that you know every entrepreneur needs to do to be a more effective marketer, what would that one thing be that they should focus on?
So we didn't really talk about this much, but I'm like crazy passionate about it. But you guys are probably...
We got 10 minutes, so we can share.
Okay. Well, so you probably heard of 80-20, right?
Yep. Pareto principle.
Yeah, the Pareto principle, right? So for those of you guys that don't know, basically Vilfredo Pareto, or whatever his name was, like in the 1700s, discovered the 80-20 principle based off of how wealth was distributed in Italy. And he found that basically 80% of the wealth was owned by 20% of the people in Italy. And then Richard Koch came along, and I think that was it the 80s or the 70s, and he wrote a book called the 80-20 principle. And he realized that that also applied to the business world, where basically 80% of your revenue would come from 20% of your customers. And then Perry Marshall came along and wrote a book, I think within the last 10 years or something like that. It's called 80-20 Sales and Marketing, which I highly recommend everybody picks that book up. It's amazing. And he took it like 5 levels deeper, right? And he basically identified that like within your marketing, within your customers, that so if 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of those customers, well, the 20% of that 20% will actually spend like 60 to 70% more than the other 18%, or whatever the math is, you know, the other 14% or whatever of that segment. So you can do the same thing with your marketing. You can go back and you can apply this principle to your marketing. You'd say, okay, what was the marketing campaign specifically that was the most effective for me? Or if you're brand new and you're starting out and you're just looking at like, what are the ways that I've gotten customers so far? What have been the most effective ways so far to do that? Okay. And do more of that. The other piece, which is not marketing related, is do not ignore the people that have already bought from you. This is so common. It's insanely common. There is way more money and way more, it's just a way easier sales process. You don't need to go and create new marketing. You just need to have a conversation with people that already bought from you, because of all of those people, let's say you have 100 customers, 20% of them have made up, 20 of them have made up 80% of what that revenue is. And then within that, there are 4 people in there that will spend 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times more than all of those other 100 people. So what's the right offer just for those 4 people?
Love that. Love that. That's so key. I mean, we know that the cost of acquisition of a customer is way more expensive than the cost of retention. So I love that you're sharing that, but I also love the fact that you're talking about the brass tacks of it on how that those 4 people will buy, but you just have to come up with the right offer to show them. And I think what a lot of people do is they like you say, they're just remiss in even going back to those people. Yeah. And what I found is a lot of times they're remiss in going back to them because they're afraid that they didn't deliver the goods. And so they're afraid the person's going to say no. But you're saying if you're delivering the goods and you're providing the value, then don't forget to go back to those people that have purchased, because a lot of them are still waiting to do more, but they need to know what more you have.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yes. And so I would say to people, like, spend as much time, if not more, on crafting great offers than you do on the marketing itself, because a great offer will override bad marketing every time.
Great offer will override. I'm going to write this down. A great offer will override bad marketing?
Yep. Or mediocre marketing every time.
Wow. Love that. That is a great,
Well, one thing I want to add on that thing too, where, cause I get it, I've definitely had moments, especially like when you're, if you have like a service-based business or you're providing something to somebody and you're newer and you want to make sure you do a good job, but you're kind of worried about that. One of the ways that I've found to be really helpful with that is I send basically what I call like a pre-work questionnaire. So like when I onboard a new client, I send them this questionnaire that lets me know kind of what their goals are, where they want to go with things, ask them basically why they hired me. But it allows me to kind of see what their expectations are so that I can more accurately track that, Obviously, if you're doing that like with a product, then, you just want to touch base with somebody. Like if it's a physical product, how's it going? Like have that customer service and follow-up support to make sure that they've been able to utilize it or they're enjoying it, all those kind of things. But I think understanding that expectation up front will help minimize a lot of that so that you can go back to that client later, knowing that you did a great job for them.
Love it. Love it. So guys, there's some great information, some great content. What I want you to do is I want you to, one, reach out, connect with Joshua on Facebook, connect with him through his Facebook group, Minimalist Marketing. Go in, apply, set up. It's a free group, but he'll give you lots of great content, a way for you to stay connected with him and do some things. And most of all, guys, you've gotten some great nuggets. You've got some great ideas. One, don't forget to implement. I see so many people gathering information, but they fail to implement and execute. The second thing is, don't forget that this is just the beginning. If you heard him from the beginning, he seeks outside influence, outside coaches, outside ideas from people on the outside. And a lot of us think, well, we've got so much, and so until I use this, I'm not going to do something more. I am completely against that. I'm saying get more, but don't forget to execute along the way. You don't have to stop learning until you use something. Continue to learn, because it's some of that learning that you learn tomorrow is going to trigger you to do something greater with the information that you learned last year. So make sure that you guys are doing that. Plug in, connect with Joshua. Guys, Joshua, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm a member of the group, and I appreciate you letting us be a part of that for free. And the book, I typed in the information, so get the book, guys. It's $3. I mean, come on. And it's downloadable, right?
Yeah, it's just instant access download to ebook for you guys.
Downloadable. So take advantage of it. Guys, first thing, thanks for being on the call. Second thing, don't forget to implement. Third, guys, get out there, make things happen for yourself and for others. Be the person that you need to be in order to influence the greater number of people, to help them live the lives that they want. And that being said, guys, get out there, make it a great week, and enjoy your next level.
Thanks, Bob.